It's time for question time. Senator Brockman.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. I'm out of practice. Stop interjecting. The Prime Minister said in April, and I quote, "I'll say this very clearly, they, Australians, will be better off under a Labor government." End quote. Minister, with inflation rising by 1.8% to 6.1% for the year to June quarter, and Labor's policy to reduce power bills by $275 already dumped, is it not true that Australians can buy less when they shop for groceries and pay off less of their mortgages?
Thank you, Senator Brockman. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I welcome the opportunity to talk about Labor's economic plan to deal with the
Minister, resume your seat. I'm going to wait for quiet, and then the minister can continue. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I welcome the opportunity to talk about Labor's economic plan to deal with the economic challenges that we inherited after 9 years of failed policies and wrong priorities. And that is the truth, President. These are the circumstances we inherited. Before the election, inflation was rising, interest rates were increasing, supply chain disruption was occurring because there had been no investment in skills. The energy market,
Minister Gallagher,
was
resume your seat. Senator Cash. Senators, interjections across the chamber are disorderly on both sides. Senator Henderson, I'm calling the chamber to order. It's not a debating point, it's a request. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much, President. We inherited an energy market in crisis, increasing power prices that were actively hidden by the member for Hume on the eve of an election being called, actually changed the code so that that information couldn't be made public. That is what we inherited, and Labor's economic plan is going to deal with all of these challenges. So in answer to your questions about will households be better off, they will be better off with our investment in childcare. And I hate hearing about these things.
Thank you. Senator Ruston.
On a point of order, the minister just repeated an accusation that was made on misleading the Senate.
Senator Ruston, please resume your seat. That is a debating point. Minister Wong, thank you. I'm going to call Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much. Households will be better off with the policies that Labor are implementing. Cheaper childcare, I can go through them again and I'll do it all through question time. Every single question I'll give you the same answer. Cost of living relief for families, cheaper childcare to reduce costs for more than $1.2 million families, cheaper medicines, taking the speed limit off the economy with better training for our workforce, for free TAFE places, for investing in cleaner and cheaper energy.
Your seat. I need to be able to hear the minister's response, and I'm finding it difficult when there are so many loud interjections. I would ask senators to be quiet, particularly those on my left. Minister Gallagher.
Creating a future made in Australia with the National Reconstruction Fund, growing the care economy, upgrading the NBN, and I know I'll have further opportunity to expand on this.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Brockman, first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. The Prime Minister has said, "My government has a policy of doing what we can do to assist cost of living pressures." My question is this: what will the government do now, prior to the October budget, for Australians who are having to do more with less?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much. And we will do what we said we'd do, and what we've already done is provide support for people affected by floods. We've extended the hospital funding and pandemic leave. We've successfully argued for a minimum wage case. We've announced the Job and Skills Summit. We've begun the review into the Reserve Bank. We've begun the audit of rorts and waste, going through the budget line by line to see what you were all up to. We've begun all that.
Minister Gallagher, resume your seat. Senators on both sides of the chamber, I am not able to hear the minister's answer. I would ask you Senator Brown, I would ask you to be silent. Minister Gallagher, please continue.
Thank you. We've introduced the climate change legislation that will kickstart more investment in renewables and grow jobs and opportunities. And in relation to the budget, we are going through your budget that we inherited line by line, because after 9 years of wrong policies, failed policies and wrong priorities—
resume your seat. Minister Watt. Thank you. On my right, you need to be quiet and allow the minister the opportunity to answer the question. Just because you don't like the answer, there is no need for any senators on either side to be disorderly. Please continue, Minister Gallagher.
We are working to repair the budget and put downward pressure on $1 trillion of Liberal debt.
Senator Brockman, second supplementary.
Minister, the price of groceries is increasing. Power prices are increasing. Mortgage repayments are increasing. Does this government have any policies at all that will address these issues right now, or will the minister admit that Australians are not better off? Another broken Labor promise.
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, Australian households will be better off from a government that's actually focused on introducing policies that deal with these issues over the longer term, rather than this, what we had under you, which was 9 years of political short-term fixes to get you through a news cycle, not actually to deal with the significant challenges in the economy.
Gallagher.
I'll finish there. Thank you.
Senator Grogan.
My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Can the minister outline the current state of the Australian energy market and its consequences for Australians?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, President, and thank you to Senator Grogan for the question and for your interest in how this is affecting Australians and Australian families. And the reality is that Australians are feeling the pain in their hip pocket because of 9 years of denial, 9 years of chaos, 9 years of failed energy policies, as well as the significant international factors that we are experiencing. And you don't like it, do you? You don't like it, do you? You don't like the facts.
Interjections and yelling out at the top of your voice is absolutely inappropriate and disorderly. To the point, order, order. To the point when I tried to establish quiet, none of you could hear me. Now, it is disorderly. It's your question time, that's your opportunity to ask questions that's being interfered with, but the level of noise has to be reduced. Minister Wong.
Thank you. Yes, the impact from the former government's lack of energy policy is being felt across the economy by Australian families and businesses. Skyrocketing wholesale electricity prices, putting pressure on budgets. They promised a gas-led recovery and you had a gas crisis. And renewables, the cheapest form of energy, declined under you.
Minister Wong. Minister Wong, please resume.
The fact is, the lack of policy certainty, the lack of any policy framework, the chaos, you know what it did? It stifled investment. It stifled investment. It slowed the uptake of renewables. And instead of being well placed to deal with this challenge, Australians were left vulnerable by a government that had 22 energy policies.
Please resume your seat. Seriously. It's not only disorderly, it's disrespectful. And I will keep sitting the minister down for as long as it takes, because it's your time that's being wasted. Thank you, Senator McGrath. Calling out like that is completely disorderly. Minister Wong.
Thank you. Well, they might not like to recall how a market operates, but let me tell you this. Your chaos stifled investment. 9 years, 22 energy policies. You took 4 gigawatts out of the—
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator I'll call you when it's quiet. Senator Henderson.
Madam President, thank you. Could I ask if you could ask the senator to direct her comments through the chair? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister Wong.
President, they took 4 gigawatts of capacity out of the system, they put 1 in, and then they wonder why that has contributed to the price increases that Australians are experiencing. Then they come in here, Madam President, they come here and they say, oh, it's really bad. Well, maybe you should have thought of that in the 9 years you were in government. The 9 years you were in government, Australians are paying the price.
Minister Wong, your time has expired. First supplementary, thank you. Oh, beg your pardon, sorry.
Madam President, Senator Wong has continued to refer to you in her contribution. Could I ask you to again remind her that she's to make her comments through the chair and not directed at the chair? Thank you.
Senator Henderson, it is quite appropriate for anyone in the chamber to refer to me as President.
Meaning
Senator
the coalition.
Henderson, that's not a point of order. Thank you. Please resume the seat. Senator Henderson, I'm not accepting that it's a point of order, so please resume your seat. Thank you, Senator Henderson. First supplementary, Senator Grogan.
Can the minister now outline—
Senator Grogan, please resume your seat. Senator Henderson.
I just respectfully ask that you review your
Sure.
order
I'll review it
and come back to the chamber tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Resume your seat. Minister Wong.
On the point of order, we can get the President all the time to keep reviewing. I think the President thought that you were talking about the President. I understood, and now I think it is clarified, that you feel sensitive about me calling you. So I am supposed to call you the opposition, correct? I will attempt to do so, President. And it is correct. It is correct that it is consistent with the standing orders. I would make the point that everybody who stood here in the 9 years I've been here has used the word you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Grogan.
Thank you for that first answer. Can the minister now outline what action the Albanese government is taking to secure Australia's energy future?
Minister Wong.
Thank you. Well, we are getting on with the job. We're working with industry to invest in the technology our nation needs to secure supply to power the future and drive down emissions. I mean, it is extraordinary, President, that a party that pretends to understand markets refuses to take responsibility of the mess they've made of the market. And the mess they've made of the market is one primary reason why we see price increases.
Order.
And you're right, their only response to price increases was to hide them. That's been their only response. We are giving AEMO more powers to address projected gas shortages and other challenges in the electricity market.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Minister Wong, please continue.
We are progressing a capacity market with states to ensure we have reliable supply, and through the National Energy Transition Agreement, we are delivering energy policy to support investment, and importantly, we are implementing the Powering Australian plan that Australians voted for.
Thank you, Minister Wong. The time has expired. Order. Senator Grogan, please resume your seat. Did you have a Senate? We're not up to you yet. I thought you were calling a point of order. Senator Grogan, second supplementary.
Can the minister outline what the impact of hiding this information from Australians is on the state of the energy market?
Minister Wong. Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
On a point of order, Standing Order 193.3, the questioner and several ministers on the other side have continuously referred to an action by the previous minister and suggested that he tried to hide and a number of other assertions along that. that is an adverse reflection on somebody in the other place, and suggesting that he did. The minister did not do that. The matter.
Senator Ruston, it's not a reflection on the minister. Please resume your seat. It's not a point of order. I've asked no, because you're debating the point. It is not a point of order. Please resume your seat. Do you have a point of order, Senator Scarr?
The lines.
No, if it's on the same matter, I've ruled on it. So
well, President, it's a different matter, okay. And that is imputation of an improper motive.
No, I'm sorry,
which
it was
is different
not an
from a personal reflection.
I don't accept the point of order. Minister, please continue.
On the point of order, if I may, Minister.
President.
President. I think the word was hiding, not lied. Okay. Dear me. Okay.
Senator Cash.
Thank you, President. And after listening carefully to the various comments that have been made, I would request that, given there does seem to be some confusion, you do review the Hansard, what was said, and then come back to the chamber tomorrow with a ruling.
Thank you, Senate. Order. Senator Cash, I did hear the words that Senator Ruston referred to, which was hiding. I took advice from the clerk, but if it satisfies the Senate, I'm more than happy to review the Hansard. Thank you, Senator Ruston. I'm not entertaining any further points of order on this matter, so if it's a new point of order, I'm happy to hear it.
In relation to the request that's before you at the moment in terms of reviewing the particular information, that I would seek for you to also review comments that have been made by others, including Senator Gallagher and Senator Watt, on the same matter.
Senator Ruston, you're well aware that you can't take a retrospective point of order. I've agreed to review the Hansard and come back to the Senate. Minister Wong.
The point of order and ask them to withdraw.
Order. Senator Wong, please
Thank you.
Continue with the question asked by the second supplementary asked by Senator
Thank
Grogan.
you. Well, transparency when it comes to markets is important. Transparency when it comes to elections is important. And what we know is that the member for Hume, the former industry minister, saw a 19.7% increase to the default market offer and amended the industry code for electricity retailers on 6th of April.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
On a point of order, in relation to making a reflection on somebody in the other place for an action that they did not take.
That is a debating point, Senator Ruston, but to be perfectly honest, there were so many interjections, particularly from the right, I was struggling to hear Minister Wong. And once again, I would ask Senator McGrath. Senator McGrath from the left. Minister Wong, please continue.
The member for Hume amended the industry code for electricity retailers 4 days before the election was called to delay the release of increases.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Minister Wong. Senator Ruston.
On a point of order, in terms of reflecting on a member in the other place, the minister, in responding to the question, is making an accusation of inappropriate behaviour by the member for Hume, which she has no evidence of.
Once again, that is a debating point. Minister Wong, please continue.
Thank you. And the effect of the actions of the member for Hume delayed the release of increases in the default market offer for New South Wales, Queensland and South Australia until after the election. And no amount of point of order or interjection can hide the fact that what is occurring in the energy market is as a consequence of your chaos, and your only response was to try and hide it until after the election. So don't come in here and go on about electricity prices. We know who the guilty party is.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Your time has expired. Senator Scarr.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations, Senator Watt. Minister, last week the Federal Court fined the CFMMEU and 2 officials in our home state of Queensland more than $150,000 for entry breaches, thuggish behaviour and disgusting homophobic slurs on the $5.4 billion Queensland Cross River Rail project. Will the minister guarantee that by abolishing the Australian Building and Construction Commission, this disgraceful and disgusting behaviour will not become even more prevalent on construction sites in Queensland and across this nation?
Thank you, Senator Scarr. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Scarr, for the question. As Senator Scarr knows, I have the utmost respect for our judiciary and our judicial institutions, and it's not for me to criticise any decisions that they have made. However, I remind what I note. You right there?
Senator Watt.
What I note is that in the second week of the sittings of this parliament, the shadow minister for Employment and Workplace Relations has been ruled out of asking questions about the ABCC or anything to do with it because of her own record in that portfolio.
Minister Watt. Senator Cash.
Order is pretty obvious. It is in relation to relevance. The question that was asked by Senator Carr was in relation to the imposition of a fine on the CFMEU, as he has stated, for certain behaviour, including disgusting homophobic
we don't need to repeat
slurs.
the question, Senator
The
Carr.
question is
Senator
very
Cash.
narrow in terms of, will the minister guarantee that by abolishing the ABCC, this type of behaviour will not become more prevalent?
Thank you, Senator Cash. I have listened carefully to Minister Watt. The question was broadly about decisions of a court, behaviours of union and so on and so forth. I do believe that the minister is being relevant, and I will listen carefully to the rest of his answer. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. Of course, this government thinks that it is unacceptable behaviour in any workplace to see thuggish behaviour, to see homophobic slurs, whether that be on a construction work site or, frankly, in a parliamentary workplace, and maybe people could all reflect on that as well. But the comments made by judges in the particular case that Senator Scarr was referring to are not the only comments that we've heard made by the judiciary about the ABCC. To take one example, Justice North in the Federal Court blasted the ABCC for wasting time and taxpayers' money on prosecuting two CFMMEU officials for having a cup of tea with a mate. Justice North criticised the ABCC, saying this is a, quote, minuscule, insignificant affair.
Watt, Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Minister Watt, please continue. Thank you. Senator Scarr.
Catching. President, at point of order relevance, Senator Watt is providing other judicial comments in relation to the ABCC. He's not dealing specifically with my question in relation to whether or not the abolition of the ABCC—
Yep. Thank you, Senator Scarr. There is no need to repeat the question. And once again, Minister Watt is being relevant. He is talking about behaviour of a whole range of people, including unions. He's condemned the behaviour, and I would ask him to continue. Thank you, Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. As I was saying, there have been numerous cases in which the ABCC has been criticised by judges. In ABCC against Parker, Justice Kerr criticised the ABCC for over-egging its case, being a battleship in full steam which had difficulty turning.
Please resume your seat. Senator McGrath, every time your voice gets very loud, I am simply going to sit down whoever has got the call, and that means that time is being wasted by your actions in this question time. Thank you, Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. I was reflecting on the irony of certain opposition members asking questions about thuggish behaviour when they continue to disrespect your ruling. So, as I say, there are numerous cases in which judges over time—
Minister Watt, your time has expired. Senator Scarr, first supplementary.
Minister, the judge noted in his judgment that he had previously described the CFMMEU as the, quote, greatest recidivist offender in Australian corporate history, end quote, and that no other penalty than the maximum penalty was appropriate. Will the minister specifically specifically condemn the homophobic slurs and thuggish behaviour of the CFME officials that led to this fine. Specifically condemn those CFMEU officials
Thank you,
for
Senator
the conduct.
Scarr. The time for asking the question has expired. Minister Watt.
Well, I think we're already at tedious repetition in question 3 for the day. I have already said that there is no place for thuggish behaviour, homophobic behaviour or any other outrageous behaviour in a workplace.
Order.
I've got a whole list of comments from the judiciary about the ABCC, which I can run through if you want me to. I didn't finish what Justice North had to say about
Minister
the ABCC.
Watt, please resume your
Thank
seat.
you.
Senator Brockman.
We're on direct relevance. The minister is clearly indicating he is about to go off a very narrow, very direct question. He is flagging it in advance.
Thank you, Senator
You should bring
Brockman.
him back to the question.
Thank you, Senator Brockman. I believe the minister is being relevant. He has referred to the union in question, and I will listen carefully to the remainder of his comments. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. Here's a bit more about what Justice North had to say about the ABCC. For goodness sake, I don't know what this inspectorate is doing.
Please resume your seat. Senator Brockman, I'm not going to entertain a point of order because it's the same point of order you just made. Please resume your seat. I indicated that I would listen to the minister's answer. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. All I can do is repeat the comments that I've made twice already in answer to the primary question and the first supplementary, which is that there is no place for thuggish behaviour, homophobic slurs in any workplace, intimidation. That is not appropriate on a construction worksite. It is not appropriate in a parliamentary website. Hello, Senator McGrath. And it is not appropriate in any other worksite.
Your time has expired. Senator Scarr, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. The judge also noted that the penalty would still be insufficient to deter the CFMMEU as they regard such a sum as chump change. Will the government commit to at least doubling the fines available to the courts for such matters, including the disgraceful matters considered in this case, as the coalition government promised to do in April this year? Will you commit to that?
Thank you, Senator Scarr. Minister Watt.
Well, thank you, Senator Scarr, for reminding us of something that your government had 9 years available to do and didn't actually do until its dying days in government. And thank you again for reminding us that Senator Cash apparently has been ruled out from asking any questions in the portfolio that she's the shadow minister in. It is interesting that we continue to see members of the opposition talk up the ABCC when its record was about prosecuting trivial matters, going after unions, going after workers, rather than actually doing anything to improve the lot of workers in the industry.
I'll just wait for quiet, Senator Scarr, before I come to you. Senator Scarr.
A point of order, President. It was a very specific supplementary question about whether or not the government would double the fines or not. Yes or no answer. It should be perfectly able to be delivered on that sort of question.
Thank you, Senator Scarr. Minister Wong.
Point of order. I mean, these are getting spurious. The minister responded on the subject matter, which was fines. And if the opposition wish to chew up question time by taking ongoing points of order on spurious grounds, it's a matter for them. But I put to you, President, that there is no point of order in the point of order that's just made.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Thank you, Senator Scarr. The minister is being relevant. I can't direct him. He may not be giving the answer you require, and I can't direct him to directly answer your question, but he is being relevant to the subject matter of the question. Minister Watt, please continue.
Thank you, President. Senator Scarr knows very well the policy we took to the election in relation to the ABCC, and that was to abolish it. And the reason we intend to abolish it is that it has been a gross waste of taxpayers' money, prosecuting minor issues involving workplaces, workers and unions, and it has done nothing whatsoever to deal with the labour productivity issues that exist in the industry. For all the opposition's talk about the ABCC, productivity has fallen on construction websites.
Senator McKim.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. Minister, in just a minute or two, the RBA will announce a further increase in interest rates. Last week, the Treasurer said that these interest rate increases will result in higher unemployment and further cuts to real wages. Workers, renters and recent home buyers are being smashed to try and bring down inflation that is being driven by supply shocks and corporate profiteering. Minister, is the government seriously suggesting that there is no alternative? In 2022, is there really no better way for government bodies to respond to the current bout of inflation in a way that would cause less pain for Australians?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator McKim for the question and the two that will follow. The government supports the independence of the Reserve Bank and its responsibility around setting monetary policy. We are in a highly inflationary environment, and that is placing pressure on interest rates, which are rising, and we have seen those rises over the last few months, and the decision will be made public probably right now while I'm on my feet. And we, in terms of our approach to that, accepting that the RBA has responsibility for monetary policy and to keep or to target inflation within that 2 to 3% band, and then the government has responsibility for fiscal policy. Well, thank you, Senator Rennick.
Minister.
Well, if you're so smart,
Senator
why are you
Rennick.
sitting over there on the back bench? You know. It's even more important, the government's view is it's even more important that we are implementing the policies we took to the election, which is accepting that there are some parts of the inflation problem that are being driven by international effects, that there are things that we should be doing here to make those sensible investments into the productive side of the economy to deal with some of those supply constraints that over the longer term will grow the economy and put downward pressure on the cost of living. That is the plan we took to the election. That is the plan we are going to implement, and we accept that these interest rate rises are difficult on households, and we constantly look at ways that we can manage some of those impacts on households in the future, including as we approach the budget process in October, accepting that we are going through the budget line by line to make sure that every dollar spent is quality.
First supplementary, Senator McKim.
Thank you, President. I note, Minister, the announcement is that interest rates are up by 50 basis points. Profits are at record highs and wages' share of national income is at record lows. The European Central Bank has identified that corporate profits are surging on the back of the recent increase in inflation. Will you finally accept that corporate profiteering is contributing to inflation in Australia?
Thank you, Senator McKim. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President, and I understand that this is the strong view of the Greens political party, and it's one that they have been arguing. I do, and I have said, and I said last week, that our priority when it comes to tax reform, which is what Senator McKim alludes to, is to focus on multinational tax reform and ensuring that multinationals pay their fair share of tax, and that will contribute to budget repair. And we do want to get wages moving. We do think there's a social licence attached to some of the companies that have been doing pretty well in the last few months. But our focus is on repairing the budget, making those sensible investments into the economy, dealing with some of those supply constraints, getting wages moving, investing for the long-term productive side of the economy. That is what we said we'd do before the election. That's what we're doing after.
Thank you, Minister. Senator McKim, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. 2 weeks ago, Minister, the Prime Minister warned the RBA against overreaching. Corporate super-profit taxes would help rein in inflation and lessen the likelihood of the RBA overreaching. Why won't the government introduce corporate super-profits taxes to rein in inflation and help fund cost-of-living relief such as free childcare and dental and mental health into Medicare?
Thank you, Senator McKim. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, my first point is the Prime Minister didn't warn the Reserve Bank. I think the Prime Minister referred to the difficult balance that the Reserve Bank has to navigate in this inflationary environment and the decisions they take about increasing interest rates that were occurring in this environment, I would like to say, was occurring before the election. And these interest rates, while they're hard on households, when you've got inflation at the levels that we've got it, you will see rising interest rates. In respect to the second part of Senator McKim's question, this is asking, will the Labor government implement the Green political party's commitments that they took to the election or made after that? And the answer to that, as I said last week, is we are implementing the policies that we took to the election, and that's what we said we'd do before, and it's what we're doing after.
Thank you, Minister Gallagher. Senator Bilyk.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. Can the Minister update the Senate on the Reserve Bank's decision moments ago in relation to interest rate?
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Bilyk for the question, and it's an important question that affects all of us, many Australians, particularly those with mortgages, but also those with savings accounts. The Independent Reserve Bank has made its decision today to increase interest rates by another 50 basis points, bringing the cash rate to 1.85%. Now, Australians knew that this was coming, but it doesn't make it any easier to handle. The cycle of rate rises commenced before the election in response to the inflationary pressures that emerged before the election. Average homeowners owing $330,000 will have to find about $90 a month more for repayments, on top of the $220 extra in repayments since early May. For Australians with a typical $500,000 mortgage, it's an extra $140 a month, in addition to the extra $335 they've had to find since early May. Now, this won't come as a surprise to many, but it will still be a shock to many households. Families will have to make more hard decisions about how to balance the household budget in the face of pressures like higher grocery prices and higher power prices, which the member for Hume kept hidden from them prior to the election. As a government, we are focusing on the economic plan we took to the election campaign, that it makes the sensible investments into childcare, into skills, into digital services, using the National Reconstruction Fund, making childcare cheaper and lowering the price of energy through the Powering Australia plan. These are the commitments that we made in the election. These are the commitments we will do, and we will monitor all of these in their lead up to the October budget and the decisions we take about there, which will be primarily about fixing the waste and rorts of the previous government and implementing the election commitments that we took.
Thank you, Minister Gallagher. Senator Bilyk, first supplementary.
Thank you. And thank you for that answer, Minister. Can the Minister update the Senate on how this decision might impact Australians with savings accounts?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Bilyk for the supplementary. Obviously, higher interest rates primarily affect mortgage holders, but there's also an impact on savers as well. As the Treasurer pointed out earlier today, he's found it disappointing that higher interest rates weren't necessarily being passed on to savers, and that he would raise this directly with the banks. And I'm sure that those opposite would support that approach. The Treasurer has said that savers have been the principal victims of interest rates when they've been incredibly low, and that they should be the beneficiaries of rising interest rates. He said they've been doing it tough for some time now, and it's time that they got a bit of relief, and the government certainly supports that approach.
Thank you, Minister Gallagher. Second supplementary, Senator Bilyk.
Thank you, President. Can the Minister update the Senate on how the government's plans will support Australians during this challenging economic period?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Bilyk for the supplementary. Australians knew that the problems like high and rising inflation have been made worse by a decade of wasted opportunities and wrong priorities and those opposite. The Albanese government's economic plan is a direct response to the economic challenges that we face right now. Responsible cost of living relief, cheaper childcare, cheaper medicines, addressing the supply-side inflationary challenges and taking the speed limit off the economy, like investing in skills and productivity, cleaner and cheaper energy, get that one, Senator Henderson, getting wages moving again and beginning the very difficult work of budget repair so that the $1 trillion of Liberal debt doesn't grow bigger and bigger for generations to come?
Thank you, Minister. Senator David Pocock.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Housing, Senator Farrell. This week is National Homelessness Week, which draws attention to the over 100,000 people who experience homelessness tonight and every night this week. In places like the ACT, the dangers of homelessness, especially for rough sleepers, are particularly acute in winter. Could the Minister provide an update on progress in the development of the promised National Housing Strategy?
Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Pocock for his question, which is obviously a very serious issue, not just in the ACT, which he referred to, but across the country. And, of course, what the Labor Party has inherited after 9 years of neglect on this subject matter, of course, is a very serious situation. And, of course, the decision today by the Reserve Bank to increase interest rates certainly hasn't made that issue any easier to deal with. I'm quite. Thanks for that intervention.
Minister
Thanks
Farrell,
for that.
Direct your questions to the chair, please.
I'm quite capable of answering the question without any support, particularly from you. But look.
Order.
Look, there's a serious issue here. Senator Pocock has raised a serious issue, and I'd like to. Well, I have been answering it.
Minister Farrell, please direct your questions to the President, not across the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you. But what we've seen is a legacy of inaction on the part of the previous government, and it's the intention of this government to.
I beg your pardon, Senator Lambie.
Point of relevance, that's nice to go and blame the government for all that time you've chewed up, but I think that, with all due respect to Senator Pocock, if you could just answer his question, that would be wonderful. Thank you. You can go and play all the games you like.
Thank you, Senator Lambie. I'll remind the Minister of the question. Are you seeking a point of order, Senator Pocock?
Repeat the question.
No, the question doesn't need to be repeated. Okay. Thank you. Minister Farrell.
Now, in stark contrast to what the opposition did in its time in government, Australia has finally got a government in Canberra.
Thank you, Minister Farrell. Your time has expired. Senator Pocock, first supplementary.
Thanks. My last question was an update on the progress in the development of the promised National Housing Strategy. The first supplementary is about the commitment to build 30,000 new social and affordable homes over the next year. Noting the urgency of this task, when can we expect to see enabling legislation introduced and construction to actually start?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Pocock for his first supplementary question. I think we should start by sort of pointing out that one of the first things that the Albanese government did when they came to power was, for the first time, incorporate into Cabinet the position of housing and homelessness. So you're asking a question about what are we planning to do? Well, I'd start by suggesting that the decision to put that portfolio into Cabinet is a very good start in dealing with these serious issues. Now, we've got a very significant and a very strong reform agenda. You've mentioned some of the projects that we're planning to implement. Well, we've been in government 2 months.
Thank you, Minister Farrell. Your time has expired. Senator Pocock, second supplementary.
Thank you, Senator Farrell.
Order. Order.
Will the government consider wiping the historic $100 million ACT housing debt, as it has previously done for Tasmania and South Australia, to immediately free up funds that can be invested in building more social housing?
Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Pocock for his supplementary question. That particular issue, of course, is not an issue in the purview of the Minister for Housing. Of course, it's an issue for the Treasurer to deal with. But I'm very happy to have a chat to him about that issue, and I'll come back to you with a response. Thank you.
Senator Nampijinka-Price.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Indigenous Australians, Senator Gallagher. Last night on the ABC's Q&A program, the Minister for Indigenous Australians, Linda Burney, stated that Labor plans to ingrain a body likened to ATSIC in the Constitution. Given the failure of ATSIC to improve the outcomes, opportunities and hopes of Indigenous people in areas of health, education and employment, and the fact Labor supported the abolition of ATSIC, why is the Minister for Indigenous Australians using ATSIC as the basis for the Labor Party's model?
Thank you, Senator. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much, President. I thank Senator Price for the question, and I would begin by acknowledging the huge amount of work that the Minister for Indigenous Affairs, assisted by Senator Malarndirri McCarthy and Senator Dodson, have done in supporting the Prime Minister and the announcement he made on Saturday about progressing a referendum and a voice, treaty and truth. This is a period of time, and certainly we discussed it this morning in our party room, of enormous pride to get behind and build momentum to amend the Constitution with a referendum.
Minister, please resume your seat. Senator Cash.
I'm sorry, Madam President. With all due respect to Senator Gallagher, Senator Nampijinka-Price's question was very, very clear. It was in relation to comments made by the Minister on ATSIC and why the Minister for Indigenous Australians is using ATSIC as the basis for the Labor Party's model. It wasn't about the work that had been done to date. It wasn't about anything yet that Senator Gallagher is referring to.
It was the voice. The Minister is relevant.
Order. Order. Senator Nampijinka's.
The Minister is relevant.
Thank you.
And I'd ask the Senator to withdraw.
Minister Wong,
that
please
is a
resume
reflection
your
on
seat. Minister. Thank you. Senator Brockman.
I wish to just add on the point of order. I've just reviewed the question and it had no mention of the voice.
Thank you.
No
Senator
mention
Brockman,
of the voice, Madam President.
Senator Brockman, please resume your seat. I'm about to rule on the point of order. I listened very carefully. Order. I listened very carefully to the question. It was broad-ranging. It did talk about Q&A. It talked about ATSIC. It talked about the health and welfare of First Nations peoples in this country. I've listened carefully to Minister Gallagher, who's still got 1:15 to go, and if she is not addressing the question, I will draw it to her attention. Thank you, Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam President. And I didn't see the Minister's comments, but I know the Minister well and have had many conversations with her about this, as I have with many of my colleagues on this side of the chamber. And the point, I think, of the discussions that we've been having since the Prime Minister's address on Saturday was really about progressing constitutional recognition for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that has been worked on for many, many years.
Minister, please resume your seat. Senator Cash.
President, with all due respect, yet again the question was very, very clear. It was in relation to comments about ATSIC and why the Minister for Indigenous Australians is using ATSIC as the basis for the Labor Party model. I would put it to you, and I may have to request that you do have a look at your rulings, the mere mention of a word in a question does not enable the Minister to refer to that particular word as the answer.
Thank you, Senator Cash. I'll take advice from the clerk. Senator Cash and other senators have drawn Minister Gallagher back to a part of the question, and I will invite the senator to continue. I will invite the minister to continue answering the question.
Well, thank you. As I said, I didn't hear the comments that the minister made, but I understand the approach that she and Senator Dodson as the Special Envoy are bringing, and Senator Malarndirri McCarthy as Assistant Minister are bringing to this discussion. As the Prime Minister has said, there will be further consultation and deliberation with First Nations people and the community more broadly as we work towards the referendum, but we've been talking about this for 15 years. We want the debate around it to be respectful. We want to bring people together on the journey, and we want to get the outcome in the end. And that is what Minister Burney and all of us are working towards.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Nampijinka Price, first supplementary.
On last night's ABC Q&A program, the Minister for Indigenous Australians, Linda Burney, stated that there will be extensive consultation conducted before legislation is drafted and that the general public will get to decide what the voice will be. Earlier on the same day, the Prime Minister outlined that the Australian Parliament would decide what the voice will look like after the referendum. On behalf of all Australians, can the Minister please clarify who is correct, the Prime Minister or Minister Burney?
Thank you, Senator. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much. And again, I think the approach that the Prime Minister has made is around consulting and consulting widely. That work needs to be undertaken. Minister Burney will be leading that along with Senator Dodson. And obviously there will be a mechanism for the voice, but we are not determining that ourselves for too long. Policies have been imposed rather than developed, and that is the work that needs to be done now. There is no point, and we won't play the game of dividing people based on certain quotes that I haven't heard. This is a process where we would like to work together, to reach across the chamber, to hear different views, to have that fed back in. We understand there isn't unanimous agreement even in this parliament, let alone outside the parliament. So let's work together to deliver a magnificent outcome for this country.
Thank you, Minister Gallagher. Senator Nampijinka Price, second supplementary.
Thank you. Domestic, family and sexual violence is now in the Northern Territory 64% higher than 2016. How will the voice practically change this statistic?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam President. And I think this is the debate about whether it's an argument about symbolism versus practicality of practical implementation of policies. We would say that we need both, that you have recognition of the oldest continuous culture in the planet, recognised in our Constitution, but at the same time that you implement and improve through consulting rather than imposing and bringing people together the policies that are designed to support First Nations people, that we do both and that they are interlinked. That is the whole point. That is the whole point. It's not one or the other. there is a universal agreement that we need to see improvements for First Nations people in a whole range of areas, in health, in education, in jobs, in economic security, housing, community safety, all of that. But that doesn't mean we should walk away from this opportunity.
Order. Senator Thorpe, order. Senator Thorpe, when I call you to order, I expect you to stop shouting out. Senator Lambie or Senator Tyrrell? I've got Senator Lambie, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Madam President. My question is for Minister representing the Minister for Financial Services, Senator Gallagher. Minister, right now superannuation managers can only spend their members' money to support their members' financial well-being. I would have thought that's just basic common sense, but somehow Labor doesn't agree. Don't you care if directors spend Australians' retirement money on stuff they don't need? We know they'll go back to paying for flashy corporate retreats and news websites like they were doing before we changed the laws.
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister Gallagher.
President, I missed the first part of the question, so sorry, Senator Lambie, I really couldn't hear it.
Senator Lambie, please repeat the first part of your question.
Thank you, Madam President. Minister, right now superannuation managers can only spend their members' money to support their members' financial well-being. I would have thought that's just basic common sense, but somehow Labor doesn't agree. Don't you care if directors spend Australians' retirement money on stuff they don't need? We know they'll go back to paying for flashy corporate retreats and news websites like they were doing before we changed the laws.
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam President. I will have to come back to Senator Lambie on that question. I'm sorry. I would want detail before I provide an answer to the chamber. I don't want to be incorrect and have to come back and correct the record, but my apologies.
Senator Lambie, first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Everybody knows super managers make donations to political parties and industry groups, which I bet many members do not know and which I do not like. But at least they have to tell members who they're donating to and how much they're giving them. Why is Labor proposing to change that? Aren't you guys supposed to be about transparency? That's what you sold during your election. Or do you only care about transparency when you're trying to win elections?
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister
No,
Gallagher.
we are a big supporter of transparency, Madam President, and we'll be a lot more transparent than those opposite have ever been in a whole range of areas. As to the detail, I will come back to Senator Lambie with an answer.
Senator Lambie, second supplementary. Order! Order! I don't believe Senator Lambie has been interjecting when you've asked questions, and I would ask you to give her that same respect. Second supplementary, Senator Lambie.
Thank you, Madam President. Labor says the changes are about reducing complexity for directors, but directors still have to tell members how much they spend on donations, just not where the donation money is going to. Won't that mean they'll have to keep those records anyway? Isn't this really just about hiding super money going to Labor and the unions?
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister Gallagher.
Well, the answer to that is no.
Thank you. Senator O'Neill. Order. Senator O'Neill.
Thank you, President. And my question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Skills and Training, Senator Watt. According to the OECD, Australia is experiencing the second most severe labour shortage in the developed world. Can the Minister update the Senate on the government's progress in implementing its commitment to hold a Jobs and Skills Summit and outline what measures the Albanese government has already taken to address skills shortage?
Thank you, Senator O'Neill. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator O'Neill. I know this is an issue you've worked on for many years, particularly in your committee roles. As every employer and worker in Australia knows, our country is facing a skill shortage crisis. This is the workplace legacy of a decade of training cuts and inaction from an incompetent coalition government. And projections are that 9 out of every 10 new jobs over the next 5 years will need a post-school qualification, heightening the need for greater investment in our training system. The failure of the former government, which they are really upset to be reminded of, to invest in skills is one of the key causes of our economy's capacity constraints and the higher inflation that's resulted. And that's why the Albanese Labor government is taking action right now. The Jobs and Skills Summit in September is part of delivering on our election promise to bring people together, something the last government was incapable of doing, and find common ground on some of our tough economic challenges. Of course, as Senator Gallagher has pointed out, we have inherited a budget with $1 trillion in debt, so the government will ensure that any measures taken will provide a good economic return. Australians voted in May for a government that looks ahead and makes real plans for the future, so we can shape our future instead of just reacting to events and missing opportunities, something that we had to endure nearly 10 years of from those opposite. We know a lot of Australians are doing it tough, so a key focus of the summit will be how we can improve lives and livelihoods, raising incomes, creating good jobs and getting Australians the skills they need for the jobs of tomorrow. The summit will bring Australians together, including employers, unions, civil society and governments, to address our shared economic challenges. We need all sorts of skills in our country, whether they be traditional or new skills, and it's this government's actions, including the Jobs and Skills Summit, which will be good for jobs.
Thank you, Minister Watt. Your time has expired. Senator O'Neill, first supplementary.
And I have to say that's the most satisfying answer I've received in the entire time I've been in this chamber. Can the minister advise the Senate why it is important to hold this job?
Senator O'Neill, please resume your seat. You need to be able to answer your question with quiet. Senator O'Neill.
Thank you, Senator Watt. Can the minister advise the Senate why it is important to hold this Jobs and Skills Summit?
Minister Watt.
Senator O'Neill, I aim to please with my answers and I'll try and please you with this new one as well. The Albanese government took office at a time of rising inflation and interest rates, falling real wages and $1 trillion of debt, which is now more expensive to service. Now, it really does take some effort for a government to deliver at the same time falling wages and a skills shortage, because of course economic theory, orthodox economic theory, would suggest that if you have a skills shortage, wages would go up. But at a time of skills shortages in this country, this ex-government sent them down. We know a lot of Australians are doing it tough, so a key focus of the Jobs and Skills Summit will be how we improve lives and livelihoods, raising incomes, creating good jobs and getting Australians the skills they need for the jobs of tomorrow. Delivering the skills that our employers, our workers and our economy needs is a key step towards growing our economic capacity and dampening inflationary pressures. That's why the Albanese government is hitting the ground running on this.
Senator O'Neill, second supplementary.
Thank you very much, Minister, and it's nice to get an answer full of hope and opportunity. Minister, what are the risks to the current skills shortage crisis if we don't have a government committed to investing in and reforming the skills and training sector?
Minister Watt.
Thank you again, Senator O'Neill. Well, unfortunately, after a decade of training cuts and inaction, we are now experiencing a coalition-led skills shortage crisis, a situation made worse by the previous government's decision to abandon migrant workers during pandemic.
Resume your seat. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Madam President. I remember by week 2 it was starting to sink in for me as well, so I can understand the reaction that we've had this week. This situation of Kursk was made worse by the previous government's decision to abandon migrant workers during pandemic lockdowns, heightening the skill shortages that we saw across industries. And it's also true that the previous government failed to make an agreement with the state and territory governments on skills funding. Not one state or territory government signed up to the previous government's approach, whether they were Liberal or Labor or Coalition. So it's no surprise when the previous government neglected TAFEs, the lifeblood of the vocational education and training system, and failed to do the work needed for our skills sector. Unlike the former government, we're hitting the ground running, we're taking responsibility.
Minister Wong, your time has expired. Please resume your seat. Minister Wong.
That was the last one, wasn't it? I ask that further questions be placed on notice.